Procurement Nerds are back. Dr. E, I feel like we've been jet setting quite a bit this last month.
We have.
I describe to people that don't attend a lot of events that October is like the conference month. Mm-hmm. I know for me personally, I'll be jet setting again on Saturday, going to a data center conference in San Antonio. My company has 12 events between end of September and end of October. So within like a 5 or 6 week window. I know you've been jet setting to events as well. So we're recording on the holiday Monday. And so this episode will be released in 2 days. But I feel like we're actually home and settled for this week.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled because I'm speaking at another conference next week at the Zip Connect. And I am so thrilled that it's in San Francisco. So
it's an hour or two drive each way is nothing for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if I go at off times, it's like a 20-minute drive. So it's, or if I take public transportation, which I'll probably do because it's right downtown, it's like, oh my God, this is so great. So anyway.
So topic for today, I have actually put together and run a few times over the last year a workshop helping people better optimize their LinkedIn profile, helping them build out and create a content strategy, and then learning and figuring out how to beat the LinkedIn algorithm. And I know you're also really active on LinkedIn and consume a lot of content and have strong opinions, as do I, about things that we like to see on LinkedIn and things that we feel, are the right strategies and approach to take. So thought today it would be useful for me to go through and share some of the most recent learnings around changes that have been made to the LinkedIn algorithm in the last 2 to 3 months and what the heck is actually working on LinkedIn right now.
Yeah. And I think we're at I don't want to say seminal moment, but certainly a significant moment because a lot of people are really frustrated with LinkedIn. Yeah. Creators have found their content not hitting very big audiences. A lot of the stuff that's posted tends to be AI generated, either the images or the text, which gets very dull very quickly. There's a lot of negative stuff out there. So I think it's important to understand. And of course, LinkedIn changed the algorithm as they probably tune it all the time. Yeah. But it really feels like it's like if there were another option, folks might gravitate to that because of the amount of frustration. Not that that's going to happen, but
yeah. Well, and throw in the new AI video feeds that both Meta and ChatGPT have launched in the last couple of weeks, which have been creating quite a stir in the content creation world and some fear and panic, and rightfully so. If anyone can easily create content, what does it mean for folks that are full-time content creators? Even I saw a tweet from Mr. Beast, who, is one of the biggest content creators in the world. And his videos, have hundreds of millions of views. He even said, this is scary. Like his whole business is around creating video content. And if you can now very, very quickly go in and use AI to do that, what does that mean for the future of folks in the industry? So just a lot to think about.
Well, and that's why we talked about, our last episode was about AI generated content for me, those 2 episodes ago. But that's. Although I have to say what Mr. Beast does is on a whole new level. Like, I don't think he has anything to worry about. His content's super compelling. So
yeah, and recreating his simulations using AI, I think you're right. It's a high bar, but it's the whole idea that there are people who make their livelihood off creating content, and that whole world is being blown up.
Good. All right. So give us a masterclass, Sarah.
Okay, so I follow some people on LinkedIn that I think do an incredible job with creating high quality content and have a good strategy and system. So I'm going to mention them and share some of their best practices, and we'll make sure to hyperlink in the show notes if you want to go and look up and follow any of these LinkedIn creators. I find it super useful, so want to share that as well. So first person I want to talk about is someone named Tommy Clark, and he is the founder of a company called Social Files. And his whole business is around helping executives create content that's organic, meaning non-paid, non-sponsored. And he has something called a 3-part content ecosystem framework that he follows. But this is what they do for a living. He's got a team of writers that creates content and manages posting for executives on LinkedIn. And I want to share something that he published at the end of July of this year around shifts that him and his team have noticed on LinkedIn. And because they do this for a living day in and day out, they have a lot of data points around this that I think are useful. So first thing that he calls out is the platform saturation is a very high bar, meaning AI tools are flooding LinkedIn with generic content. And I know, Dr. Elouise, you mentioned this. You and I talk about this a lot. It can be very frustrating when we have 10 minutes and we're doing a quick scroll through our feeds and we think that, 95% of the posts look like they're AI generated. It can be very frustrating for the consumers.
Yep, 100%.
Second thing, content lifespan is up. So what does this mean? This means that posts now stay in feed for 2 to 3 weeks instead of dying after 2 days. So this is really, really good for those of us who are actively leveraging LinkedIn as part of our marketing and content strategy. So as a creator, you want to create for long tail visibility. So that's a good thing that has changed in the last few months with their algorithm. Third thing he calls out is organic reach is falling. And Dr. Elouise, I don't know if you've gone through and scrolled and looked at data across your feeds, like let's say now versus 6 months ago, but I think you'll notice, I know I have, that the number of impressions has significantly dropped on posts. I know I've seen that, and I've seen that on other kind of other people on LinkedIn who have quite a few followers. If I look at a post that they do today versus 6 months ago, it's a pretty significant difference.
Well, now it's interesting. I know a lot of people that are complaining about that, and that's one of the big criticisms right now. It's interesting because I've had the reverse experience. My content is getting significantly more views, and I'm like, that's interesting. So, but I agree with the statement because I see that everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And I think you said views. So if you're meaning video, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
I meant impressions, okay. Or okay. I'm not big on that because everybody has different terminology for every platform. So it's like, anyway.
Yeah. So look, across the board, so interesting that you may be an outlier, but across the board, organic reach is falling, which then ties into his number 4, which is the rise of something called thought leadership ads. So LinkedIn about 14 months ago launched a type of ad that allows you to promote a post that you made organically. So Dr. Elouise, let's say you do a post on Wednesday about our podcast episode and it performs really well. And to me, performing well means you have high engagement, which means lots of thoughtful comments. To me, it's more about the comments instead of the impressions. So let's say the post performs really, really well. You could then put some money behind the post, which means LinkedIn will promote it or boost it to folks that wouldn't necessarily see or consume your content. So it gives marketers or folks on the go-to-market side the ability to test content. And if something performs really well, it allows you to put some ad dollars behind it.
That's interesting. Although, like, yeah, I think the paid promotion that is a slippery slope.
And slippery slope even more in that can be done from a personal profile, not just a company profile, right? So individuals that we follow could be putting paid ads directly in their feeds.
Yeah.
Number 5 from Tommy, which is embrace imperfection. So I think this is really important, that if your posts look too polished, people will immediately assume that they are written by AI. So I actually recommend having some typos in your posts, which make them look more real and authentic, right? If you misspell a word or you're missing a period, it can actually show that it was human generated. And it also, in my opinion, speaks to the importance of having a more casual, human, personal tone instead of sounding like a robot when you're producing your content.
Yeah, well, and there now people I've noticed have put the tagline AI was not used in this post. So I do think making it stand out or making it clear, this is not AI. I think that's important.
Yeah. And I've also seen that on a couple people's, like, it's almost like their CTA at the bottom and they'll have a little emoji and it says that, this was not generated, which is an interesting strategy, right? You're
Right.
literally calling out, assuming it's true, that it wasn't created by AI. And we'll see if that catches on. I've only seen a couple folks do that. I haven't seen it be super widespread yet, but that is one way to also just double down and enforce that your content is authentic.
Yeah.
Tommy's number 6, and this is something that I have noticed as well, is that founder-led content. So if you're a CEO, founder of your own consulting firm, your content is actually showing up in ChatGPT answers. So one of the reasons why I would tell folks that LinkedIn is still really important is that the traditional SEO, search engine optimization, is completely going away. And now it's being called generative engine optimization or answer engine optimization. That's because people are now bypassing Google and going directly into AI tools to do their searches. I do. Yeah. I go to ChatGPT first now. I don't even go to Google first. So when you're going into ChatGPT and you're on the other side where you're producing content, you want your content coming up in those searches. And so ChatGPT is pulling in content from LinkedIn in their results when people are typing in questions. So that would, to me, is a really important business case about why LinkedIn is still important. And I don't know, Dr. Elouise, how often, if you're ChatGPT or what your main go-to is. But the other thing I'm noticing is that on Google, you had, 10 pages, 10 results per page plus the sponsored. In ChatGPT, sometimes I'll only get 2, 3, 4 answers. So the number of answers is less, which makes it even more important for your content to come up as one of those answers.
Yeah, because and there was a setting that Google just switched that limits the amount of data coming back. I don't have the details, but I think all of this is to say that if you're Google, you don't want all your great data and search results just feeding your competitor OpenAIs and make them better. So,
yeah. And then Tommy's final note when he did his recap, which is number 7, is around building what he calls a content ecosystem. And what that means is more human touch points, not just post volume. So that means having more than just one person from your company posting content on LinkedIn. So Dr. Elouise, if you were running marketing for your firm and you were producing all of the content, you're not going to be as effective as reaching as many eyeballs as if you had 10 people at the company that were all posting and sharing content. So it's about building a team of people and not just having one single person be the source for all of the content creation and posting, which I think is really, really important. And I know is easier said than done, especially when sharing things publicly doesn't come naturally to everyone, right? Certain personality types.
Well, yeah, yes. And without besmirching anybody at the firm, I mean, there are certain profiles that are more prone to doing public stuff. And it is hard. It is hard to get everybody, to get those 10 people.
Yeah.
And I can see various folks within the firm trying, some people doing it, but also there is a culture of confidentiality. So it's really hard, because from you're a junior all the way up till for a decade or 2 or 3, there's always this push of be very protective of clients and their data, and rightly so. And at the same time, it's like, well, wait, go post on LinkedIn. And then what ends up happening is you post internal things like, we all got together for a meeting. It's like, nobody cares about that. So
I think there's creative ways to do storytelling without having to mention or give away a customer name. Right? You can talk about industry, you can do kind of a dialogue type post. So you can do it. You just have to be a little bit more creative.
Well, right. And so, and if you've grown up just like, no, then it's hard to break that habit. And again, we just had to take a privacy and compliance, whatever training or certification. And, one of the things was you must always use a privacy screen. And I was thinking back to a couple episodes ago where, well, if I'm working on LinkedIn or social media posts or content, I want everybody on the plane to see it.
Yeah.
I want people to stop it because it's obviously not proprietary. So I think you have to be it has to be a balance.
You have to be a little bit agile and flexible, right? One standard doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
All right. Next creator and influencer who does a lot of work on LinkedIn and helps, again, CEOs and executives with content strategy and posting on LinkedIn is someone named Devin Reed. Again, we'll link his profile in the comments. And he produces one of the only weekly newsletters that come in via email that I actually read. He has great titles in his subject lines, and his emails are very short and consumable. And I just really love his style and appreciate how he presents his information. So I wanted to share his 5 tips that will grow your LinkedIn audience. And I think these are really helpful and useful and worth spending a few minutes on. So Devin's tip number 1 is worry less about expertise and focus more on being relatable. Instead of exclusively trying to be an expert, keep it real and share your experience. So some examples he gives: share your mistakes. Vulnerability builds credibility and humanizes you. Share your progress. People love to follow the journey, and you'll find friends and fans along the way. Share behind the scenes content. Sure, you're a professional, but people want to know the real you. Think about things like hobbies, family, and quirks. Tip number 2, Start your post with a short single sentence hook. And this is important to remember, that your first sentence is what shows up when people are scrolling through your feed. So if you're putting a whole paragraph at the top, people are only going to see the first sentence or so. So that's a really important part of the real estate when you're creating a post.
And I want to just add to that, because I've actually on our podcast, when I posted about our podcast, I found our producer
Sabrina.
Yeah. It was gonna take me a minute to does this really great 1 minute teaser, and in addition to doing the thumbnail, and I found that using the thumbnail gets way more engagement than the even though I actually like the teaser.
Yeah.
I noticed that so it's not only that first sentence, but that image can be the hook to get you.
Yep. And again, that you wouldn't know that, so you've had to test it and see what your audience prefers.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Devin's tip number 3 is don't just grab attention, learn how to keep it. Solve one problem for your audience in each post. That's it. Keep it. The key is that your message has to be insightful, relevant, and actionable. Theoretical content is usually viewed as what I call marketing fluff. It's too abstract. People crave practical guidance. And a great example of this is YouTube. They became really popular because of all the how-to content, right? People were showing practical ways, like how to plunge your toilet, how to change a light bulb, how to paint your front door, right? These were very practical things where they were giving guidance.
Can I just have to share this. I mean, this is probably the wrong episode to say this in, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I've been doing AI master classes and very much focused on the how-to, and I just flat out tell everybody, if you want to learn AI, just stay off of LinkedIn. Everything that everybody's writing about AI on LinkedIn is trash. And I said, if you want to learn, go to YouTube, go to TikTok, because there's actually a ton of great how-to content. Because on TikTok, it's like bang, 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 bang. Oh, okay. And then, so it's very, very punchy, and you get right to the point, which tickles my brain. So, yeah.
And to lean into, double down on what Devin said for this is, don't overload me with too many different themes in one post, because I'll get lost and I'll move on. So I don't want to know, that you made appetizers, that you made 10 things for dinner, then you did this for dessert. Just tell me one thing. Pick one theme, one message you want to convey, and then you can do other messages or other topics in additional posts. But I've seen some people make that mistake. And me as the consumer, it's too much and I get confused and I don't have the patience for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tip number 4 from Devin is don't bother trying to beat the LinkedIn algorithm. And I totally agree with this. It changes all the time. None of us are ever really going to know the full ins and outs. So it's not going to help you grow your audience. It's not long-term. Instead, focus on understanding your audience deeply and solving their problems. That's how you will build credibility and trust. And it's important to remember that our audiences are different. So Dr. Elouise, your audience might prefer different types of content, different styles than mine, for example. So when you're listening to these quote experts, you also need to test and try things on your own. Mm-hmm. And his tip number 5 for how to grow your LinkedIn audience is simple sells. Use conversational language in your writing. Write as you speak. Use everyday language. Think us think use instead of utilize. Tell simple truths. You don't need to exaggerate to sell. Just share the honest benefits you provide. Write in short sentences. They're easier for your reader to follow. Mix it up between short and medium sentences so you don't have what he calls choppy writing.
Yep.
All right. Next person that I thought had some useful knowledge to share about LinkedIn is someone named Simon Schmitz. And he helps folks turn stories into sales by producing LinkedIn content. And he actually has some data from working with his clients that I wanted to share about the LinkedIn algorithm changes. And this is from August of 2025, so about a month and a half ago. Reach is down for 90% of users. So Dr. Elouise, you might be in that 10% that isn't noticing a dip in impressions.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of the few writing the algorithm high, you're probably wondering what went wrong. LinkedIn is going through a phase. One week your content actually is doing decently well, and then the next it tanks for no apparent reason. So I'm going to go through what he has found that is actually working right now on LinkedIn. And it's important to note that if you're following the playbook that you used last year, it's probably not going to work. And it's important that you pivot and change and stay on top of these changes.
Right.
So first is shorter is better, which was not always the case. I actually intentionally used to write very long posts because long posts performed better for me. He is saying not the case now. Shorter is being prioritized. He says posts under 300 characters outperform longer ones by increasing dwell times and shares. Shorter content is also easier to digest, especially on mobile. Keep your posts concise, one strong hook, one clear insight, and invite discussion in the comments. Second, auto follow. This is new, Dr. Olsen. I don't know if you've even heard this yet. So premium users, which means you pay about $100 a month for your LinkedIn account. You're not using the free version. Premium users frequently engaging with your content now automatically follow you. So there's a connect button and there's a follow button on your profile. If Dr. Elouise, I'm constantly engaging with your content, it's going to auto follow me instead of me choosing to opt in to hit the follow button. This quietly boosts the visibility of your future posts because the LinkedIn algorithm prioritizes promoting content to your followers and to your connections. Right. And then a tip is quickly reply within about an hour or less to premium commenters to maximize this effect. Next tip. That. Yeah, it's new, very, very new. Next tip from Simon is focus, don't go rogue. LinkedIn rewards consistency across 3 pillars: relevance, expertise, and engagement. Posting off-topic content reduces your authority and reach. Focus your profile and post consistently around 1 to 3 of these content pillars. And I think, Dr. Elouise, this is important because you want to have a theme of your content. So you focus on the future of supply chain. So it's important that all of your content in some way ties back to that there's a theme, and that I know that when I'm consuming your post, I know what you're going to be talking about. If one day I'm talking about a dog, and then the next day I'm talking about a tree, and then I talk about a new water bottle, it's hard for people to know what you actually care about and what your area of expertise is, and they'll just move on.
Which is why we should not be posting about politics or our personal lives, with a few exceptions, on LinkedIn. Please stop doing that.
Yeah, I was at a conference last week, and I had some people who attended a LinkedIn workshop that I gave last year, come up to me and they said, "What's going on with LinkedIn? It's turned into Facebook."
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
the underlying comment related to what you just said, which is around people are posting photos of what they cooked for dinner and their pets, and unless you're tying it into something that's relevant to your area of expertise or your business, it becomes a little fragmented and people get confused.
yeah, and I would imagine the algorithm gets a little confused or deprioritizes if you kind of just veer off and do something. I get the emotional impact of doing it. And by the way, I've done it too. So I'm not throwing stones. That's just if you really want to be doing your expertise, do your expertise. And yeah. So I mean, I think it is interesting that you and I talk about the avocados and Pizza Hut and fire trucks, but it's always around or pizza and at Domino's, and it's around procurement and supply chain and issues around that. So, yeah.
All right, next tip or insight from Simon is write content worth saving. The algorithm gives priority to content people save rather than just like. So you want to write something so good that people are going to want to go back and reference it. So they hit that save button. The more saves you get, the more priority your content is going to be given in the algorithm. Saves signal lasting value, increasing your content's distribution. So this is something that I have not done a very good job of. And Dr. Elouise, I don't know that you've started doing this on your posts as well, but he recommends clearly prompt followers to save this post at the bottom as your call to action. So if it's something where you're giving a lot of data, a lot of stats, maybe a series of steps that wouldn't be easy to remember, I think it's very appropriate at the bottom to say, remember to save this, or feel free to save this post so you can go back and reference it later.
I don't do that, but I'm considering maybe doing
that. Me too, but I need to have the right type of post to do it, right? Where there's enough that somebody's going to need to actually go back and reference it. Yeah. I've talked about this before, but I'll say it again here because it's on Simon's list. Personal profiles over company pages. Always, always, always. LinkedIn algorithm prioritizes content from personal pages and deprioritizes content from company pages. So if you are spending a lot of time posting from a company page, I would encourage you to stop immediately and start posting most of that content from a personal profile. Now, it doesn't mean you should never post from a company page, but with the limited time that you have, I would say most of your content should be coming from a personal profile.
Yeah, I get actually confused because I get tagged in a lot of things, and I'll take a selfie with somebody and I'll get tagged by the company, and then I got to respond to the company, which is weird when I know that either the company or the person behind the company is the person I took the picture with, or that they're referencing. It just gets really weird, and I want to respond or be connected with the person.
Yeah, and it makes it feel, to me, kind of impersonal if you take a selfie with somebody and then you're posting it from a company page versus posting it from your own profile. All right, Dr. E, we were talking about this before we hit the record button, but Simon calls it video for the win. So LinkedIn is absolutely prioritizing video content. They're trying to keep up with the other platforms like TikTok and YouTube. So they're absolutely boosting posts, especially from desktop, when it has a video associated with it. So LinkedIn now heavily promotes vertical videos in their desktop feeds. Vertical video fills screens and attracts followers with a built-in profile view. And then his tip is shoot vertically, hook viewers within 3 seconds, and always include captions. And when you do post a video on LinkedIn, they give you the option if you want them to put the auto captions. So they will add that for you if you want.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about video at this point, because video means longer time on duration on the post and ergo the site. So, and video is it can grab you. So,
all right. 2 final call outs from Simon that I want to share. DMing on LinkedIn matters a lot. And this is something that I learned a couple years ago, but I think it's important to reiterate to folks that maybe don't know this. LinkedIn prioritizes content from people you interact with privately. Regular DMs and direct engagement boost mutual visibility. So here's a way that you could incorporate this. After posting, send genuine DMs to commenters that you'd like to keep engaged with. So Dr. Elouise, let's say I'm posting content. You and I are engaging quite a bit in the comments. I would probably then also send you a DM and say, I loved, when you talked about X, Y, and Z, or thank you for, adding value, something that's personal. I'm not using an automated, platform to do it where I'm actually writing you a thoughtful post. But what it will do is it shows LinkedIn that we're valuable connections, and it will prioritize sharing our content in each other's feeds.
Yep.
And then final, and this is something I know I've been asked about quite a bit. External links are a no-no. Do not include external links in the body of your post. Call out at the bottom and say, check out the comments or link in the comments. Don't put it in the post. LinkedIn does not want you taking people off their platform. So just if you're doing it, just remind yourself. According to Simon, he feels the data that him and his team has gathered, that it can reduce reach by up to 30% by including an external link. So pretty significant. And another thing you could do to get creative is you can edit your LinkedIn posts. You just can't change out the video or the graphic once it's posted. So Dr. E, let's say you do a post tomorrow that is referencing an external link. Knowing now that posts are now staying in feeds 2 to 3 weeks, you could go back into that post 3 days later and add the link in the body of the post after you've given it time to perform well and rank in the algorithm.
Yeah. And I just want to, I saw something that, and I think we were talking about this at one point, because this is a bone of contention, because I've been asking this question, or just chewing with this issue for a long time, chewing on the issue for a long time. Apparently, if you add 3 links, it's okay, but 1 link is not okay. So I don't know if you've read anything about that.
No, and to me, having 3 links in a post is a lot. And to me, that's a little bit confusing to the reader, because what am I supposed to do? Go click on 3 external links and then I'm going to get lost. So for me personally, I wouldn't like that as the person reading the post.
Yeah, I agree. I was curious. Yeah. I was just, it was weird that I had heard, because for years I have heard no links in the post, put them in the comments. And then all of a sudden I saw this thing that said, well, if you put 3 links, then it's saying that you're an expert and you're passing people off to, 3 relevant links. So. And
then one more person that I'll close this out with for this episode is someone named Michelle J Raymond. She also owns a LinkedIn consulting business. She has a podcast. And there's a couple things that she has shared recently about her learnings that I thought would be relevant for our audience. And the first is around polls. And these are something that I honestly forget about and don't do enough. But her data shows that polls are performing really, really well still on LinkedIn. And the reason is it's really quick and easy for people to engage with you. You're doing a quick scroll, you see a poll, you can vote, and it takes 2 seconds. It's not a big commitment. So she is just reminding people polls are important, and she encourages her clients who post very regularly to even consider doing 1 poll a week. So just remember that that's an option and consider that as part of your content strategy.
It's so funny. I hate polls, and I know it's because I'm a curmudgeon, and but yeah, on Fishbowl, the other corporate sort of social media platform, the polls are very common over there. And it's just every time I see one, I just roll my eyes.
So if you're trying to engage with Dr. E, do not. Polls are a no-no.
But apparently LinkedIn likes them.
LinkedIn likes them, and LinkedIn is prioritizing polls. And then something else, which I know is something that I get asked a lot about too, is LinkedIn Lives. And that's where you can actually, like, we, Dr. E, could have our show as a LinkedIn Live, right? If we decided,
it's funny. I was thinking I was going to ask you about that, if we should do a LinkedIn Live.
And maybe we should. Maybe once a month as we're recording, we should just do it, because we don't retake our shows anyway, right?
Yeah.
So we could do a live and record it and distribute it the traditional way as well. Might be something for us to consider.
And I'll tell you why I was thinking about it, because I follow a lot of creators on YouTube, and I noticed that they will, like, it'll be like you and I, they record a proper podcast once a week, like on Monday or Tuesday. And then on Thursday or Friday, they just do a live session where they're just like chit-chatting with each other about the week's news or whatever is relevant, and oftentimes politics. So I won't give any examples. But then they also do things like the super chat, and they'll take questions from the audience. And so it got me thinking. I mean, I've been really noticing this, and it got me thinking about, should we do a casual, like once a month LinkedIn Live? So.
Yeah. Or even more frequently, if we incorporated our typical show recording also as a LinkedIn Live, because it would allow us to engage with the audience.
Yeah.
Right. We could do like a Q&A throughout, or we could do the last 10 minutes as live Q&A.
Well, yeah. Or maybe we do our end of the year episode as LinkedIn Live. So everybody that enjoyed either engaged with us in person or our content. So anyway.
So Michelle's learnings from LinkedIn Live are so when you do it, you set it up as an event through LinkedIn when you're going into set it up. And she recommends creating the event 2 to 3 weeks in advance of going live. And then you can actually go in and invite 1,000 people per week to target to let them know that you're going to go live. So Dr. E, let's say we were going to do a live show in November. We would go in the next couple of weeks, we'd post it as an event, and then you and I could go in and invite people to our LinkedIn Live, up to 1,000 people per week.
So you could do 1,000 and I could do 1,000?
That's right. Huh. That's right. Yeah, 1,000 per profile. Mm-hmm. So for us, 2,000 a week. And then she says her clients that are very active on LinkedIn, she says monthly is great. So if people go live once a month, she even has clients that go live every single week. I think kind of like you mentioned, where maybe it's a 10 or 15 minute, like quick, weekly update or recap. But I think monthly for folks like you and I who are already having a dialogue and producing content could be, something to consider. And then the last tip from her around the LinkedIn Lives, and this is so important as a content creator, is repurpose the content. It is not a one and done. take what you discuss on the show, you can get the transcript, and you can convert it into email, you can convert it into blog, you can convert it into a series of LinkedIn posts. So it gives you content that you can repurpose and share much longer, with a much longer life than just the quick time that you went live.
Yeah.
So have a strategy for that, right? Don't just hang up and you're done with it, but actually have a process or something that you follow to make sure that you're leveraging that content ongoing.
In pro tip, use AI to manage all of that, because like a whole AI workflow around done, boom, all this stuff gets executed, because I think that's a perfect use case for using a series of AI agents and workflows to execute all of that.
And there are lots of new tools out there now, specifically around content and social media, that you can drop a transcript into, and it will create video clips. It'll create video shorts. It'll create images. It'll write content. So there's like whole systems now that are very, very quick and easy. Now, it doesn't mean that you just take everything it produces. You've got to read it and be kind of the eyes on it, but it can do a lot of that kind of grunt work for you. All right, I have more, but I think that was good for now, because we don't want it to be too overwhelming. But I think all of us who still consider LinkedIn an important channel and a viable, platform, I think we need to stay on top of what is working on the platform, and some of the things that we used to do that don't work, we need to stop doing them.
And I also think, even just for me, like a lot of these things are good reminders or good habits to get into, because some of I have bad habits of not responding to comments in a timely manner, though I do it. It's just, it's a good reminder. That was one of the tips.
And I'll throw in, as we close out, you mentioned commenting. One of the most important things you can do is, if you're overwhelmed or don't feel comfortable posting your own content yet, start with commenting. So pick people in your industry that you care about, customers, prospects, thought leaders, follow them, click the bell on their profile, and then spend 30 minutes a day reading posts and writing thoughtful comments. I call it the 10 comments a day rule. 10 comments a day for 30 days, and you should see an uptick in profile views and connection requests and followers.
Yeah, and the thing that I've been practicing, just like that on that note, is I did it before DPW, and then I was a little overwhelmed last week, but is posting one good post a day. So I'm trying to keep to that schedule. Anyway.
Hashtag goals.
I know. Just on that note, we talked about things in the episode, things we missed from the 70s and 80s, or 80s and 90s, or whatever it was.
80s and 90s.
80s and 90s, that's right. Yeah. And I realized that I need to start sending regular letters. So that's one of my things this week, is to get back on that train. Because we have to go back at the end of the year, recap, and see if we actually did any of this analog.
I know. What if we completely fail? We give all this advice and then we don't do it ourselves.
I know.
All righty. That's a wrap for the pod this week. We will see you next Wednesday.